Day one, you recognize the four components of your personal wheel of fear and identify your primary fear triggers. Day two, you begin implementing micro challenges specifically designed to target your unique fear response. Day three, you deploy self compassion techniques that interrupt your brain's threat response. Day four, you steadily build your personalized wheel of freedom. This is the roadmap we'll cover in today's video. The exact system that's helped thousands of my clients transition from living in constant fear to making decisions based on growth and possibility rather than protection and safety. If you've tried affirmations, visualization, or generic confidence building exercises without lasting results, this systematic approach will finally show you what you've been missing. Have you ever wondered why you keep hitting the same invisible walls in your life? Those moments when you know exactly what you need to do, yet something mysterious holds you back. What I'm about to show you isn't just another psychological theory. It's the hidden operating system that's been running your life without your permission. This invisible force is what I call the wheel of fear. Think of it as an ancient protective mechanism that evolved to keep you safe, but has now become the very prison keeping you from your potential. This four-component system operates beneath your conscious awareness, silently dictating your choices and limiting your actions. The wheel of fear wasn't designed to harm you. In fact, it developed as your mind's way of protecting you from perceived threats. But what served you well in childhood or during past traumas has now calcified into a rigid structure that prevents growth. You can see it manifesting in your life through perfectionism that keeps you from starting projects, procrastination that mysteriously appears when opportunity knocks, or self-sabotage that derails you just as success comes into view. Let's break down the first component, trigger thoughts. These are specific mental patterns that activate your fear response without warning. For instance, when your boss calls you into an unexpected meeting, the trigger thought might be, I'm about to be exposed as incompetent. This isn't rational, it's automatic. These triggers are unique to your history and experiences, which is why generic advice often fails to address your specific challenges. The second component, fear drug behaviors, follows immediately after triggers. These automatic reactions manifest as avoidance, overcompensation, working excessive hours, or withdrawal, emotionally checking out from challenges. What makes these behaviors so insidious is that they once protected you. Perhaps avoiding confrontation kept you safe in childhood, but now they're limiting your growth and potential. Beneath these behaviors lies the third component, core negative feelings. These painful emotional states, worthlessness, shame, inadequacy, form the foundation of your fear responses. They are the raw wound that your mind is desperately trying to protect. When you feel inexplicably anxious before speaking up in meetings, it's likely that a core feeling of unworthiness is being activated. The fourth component completes the cycle, self-destructive numbing behaviors. When core negative feelings become too intense, you instinctively reach for something to numb the pain. This might be over-shopping after a stressful day, mindlessly scrolling social media when feeling inadequate, or having an extra drink after receiving criticism. These behaviors provide temporary relief but ultimately reinforce the fear cycle. The symptoms of being caught in this wheel are unmistakable: impatience with yourself and others, chronic exhaustion, feeling persistently misunderstood, paranoia about others' intentions, and paradoxically, both paralysis and frantic activity. You might recognize feelings of shame that seem disproportionate to situations, or a sense of defeat that arrives before you've even begun. Consider Maria, a client who realized that her decisions were consistently driven by fear. While outwardly successful, she found herself unable to fully engage in life experiences. When she began recognizing the moments where fear hijacked her decision-making, everything changed. The invisible became visible, and what's visible can be transformed. This is why identifying your personal wheel of fear is the essential first step in our 7-day system. There are no shortcuts or workarounds. Without this awareness, any attempt at change becomes superficial at best. Your day one exercise is straightforward but profound. Map your own wheel of fear. Start by identifying one recurring challenge in your life, perhaps difficulty with public speaking or asking for a raise. Then trace backwards. What behaviors do you exhibit when facing this challenge? What core feeling underlies those behaviors? What triggers set this wheel in motion? And finally, how do you attempt to numb these uncomfortable experiences? As you complete this exercise, be gentle with yourself. This isn't about self-judgment, but self-discovery. You're developing awareness of patterns that have been invisible until now. Patterns that, once recognized, lose much of their power over you. That gentle self-discovery is the perfect foundation for what comes next. While most people believe conquering fear requires forcing yourself through uncomfortable situations or repeating positive affirmations until they stick, the research reveals something far more surprising. The most effective approach to fearless living actually involves strategic subtraction rather than constant addition. The transformation doesn't happen by fighting against your wheel of fear, but by establishing an entirely new system alongside it. This alternative framework is what I call the Wheel of Freedom, a four-component system that doesn't attempt to eliminate your fears, but instead renders them increasingly irrelevant. The first component centers on reconnecting with your essential nature, your authentic self, characterized by compassion and inner wisdom. The second involves proactive behaviors that naturally align with this authentic self. The third establishes a sense of wholeness through self-acceptance and inner joy, while the fourth encourages self-affirming behaviors that flow naturally from this state. Here's why conventional approaches fail. They attempt to override fear responses without addressing the underlying psychological mechanisms. Willpower eventually depletes. Positive affirmations without aligned action create cognitive dissonance. Degenerate confidence exercises rarely target your specific fear triggers. Each of these approaches ignores the fundamental truth that transformation requires revising your relationship with fear, not just trying to power through it. Days 2 and 3 of our system focus on implementing micro-challenges, small strategic actions designed specifically for your unique fear triggers. Consider taking a new route to work, posting something slightly vulnerable on social media, or tackling that one task you've been avoiding. These aren't random acts of bravery, but calculated disruptions to your fear patterns. Alongside these challenges, you'll practice self-compassion techniques that interrupt your brain's threat response. Instead of harsh self-judgment when fear arises, you'll learn to recognize negative thoughts as just thoughts, not facts about your worth or capability. A critical distinction we must make is between emotional fears and rational fears. Rational fears protect you from genuine threats, like the instinct to avoid a dangerous situation. Emotional fears, however, are the limiting beliefs that keep you playing small. The key identifier: rational fears diminish once the threat passes, while emotional fears persist and expand into unrelated areas of your life. As you implement this system, you'll need to be aware of what I call fear junkies, people who unconsciously reinforce your limitations. These might be dream drainers who discourage your goals with realistic advice, or complaining buddies who validate and strengthen your negative perspectives. Identifying these relationships and establishing boundaries around them is essential for your transformation. Equally important is building your Fearbuster team, a small group of 3-7 supportive individuals who will help maintain your momentum. This isn't about gathering yes people, but about creating a network of support buddies who offer unconditional encouragement and wise counsel who provide objective perspective when you need it most. For days 4 through 7, you'll implement the RICK formula for taking calculated action, release attachment to outcomes, invest in your intention, stand for truth, and keep kindness a priority. This formula helps you focus on the process rather than fixating on specific results. When you release attachment to outcomes, you gain the flexibility to adapt and persist rather than quitting when things don't go exactly as planned. Perhaps the most transformative aspect of this entire system is shifting from expectation language to intention language. Notice how often you use phrases like I should, I have to, or I need to. These create internal resistance and pressure. Instead, transform these statements to I choose to, I decide to, or I am committed to. This simple linguistic shift puts you back in the driver's seat of your own life, focusing on the actions you can take and the person you want to be rather than outcomes you expect to achieve. It's not about knowing more, it's about doing differently. You've gained insight into your fear patterns, but transformation begins when you take action. Today, not tomorrow, not next week. Take that first step outside your comfort zone. Something as simple as using a different route to work can begin rewiring your neural pathways away from limitation. The power of micro movements cannot be overstated. When you challenge just one fear trigger with one intentional action, you're not merely confronting discomfort, you're fundamentally altering your relationship with uncertainty. Fear becomes not an enemy to vanquish, but a compass pointing toward your growth edge. Remember that this journey isn't about perfection. It's about progress through consistent action. By doing one thing daily that scares you, you reclaim your power incrementally. Each small victory builds upon the last until you look back 7 days from now and barely recognize the person who began this process. Not because you've become someone new, but because you've finally allowed your authentic self to emerge from behind the veil of fear.